Well, good morning, Vicki. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Well, I'm good. I'm at my lake house. You can probably see that behind me.
Gosh.
Um, but yeah, so I'm in my happy place and I'm getting to chat
Bummer.
with one of my industry friends. So today's a
Oh,
good day.
it's a good day.
Yeah. So for those of you joining us for the first time, I am Melissa MacLeod, and normally I would say here at the Wool and the Floss, but today I'm lucky enough to be on vacation. My staff will tell you I don't vacation well. Usually, vacation means that I go somewhere and work in the mornings and show up and actually show up for vacationing in the afternoons. So this week I'm at my cottage, not at the shop. Um, but along with my partner in crime, Megan Holmes at the Needlepoint Clubhouse. Every other week or so, we drop one of these fabulous episodes and get to meet and greet people within the needlepoint industry or needlepoint adjacent industry. And so here we are today with Victoria Whitson, which most people I think call you Vicky. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
And just as a little PSA, you don't spell Vicky how you normally would, because I didn't know that for years, and I've been friends with you for years, and it's Vikki, correct?
Yes. Thank you, Mother. And which is why my college friends and my family call me Victoria, but I think as a joke. So, but the point is that when I was trying to get website and all that stuff, nobody ever spells my name right. So no matter if it's Starbucks or Chick-fil-A or whatever, people say, how do you spell it? With an I, I'm like, oh yeah, sure. Like well, however they want to spell it is so fine with me, but it's not the way that my family decided to spell it. So that's kind of also why it's Victoria, because there's really one spelling for it. Just makes it a lot easier.
I
So there's none of this, if, Vikki, Vikki, Whitson, which I do have that domain for, is it's just too hard, too hard.
Gotcha. I understand that. Well, I know you have, I feel like you wear a lot of different needlepoint hats, and I'd love to dive into all that. And I think a lot of people know you from different aspects of the industry. Um, but what I love to find out about is everyone's background and how they've gotten from A to we're not at Z yet, so A to P maybe. um,
Right.
and so let's talk about where you are, where's home for you, how you grew up, where you went to school, what other professional stuff you've done, like all that good stuff. So why don't you just dive in and give us a little background of Vicki Whitson?
Yeah. Okay. So I was Vicki Davis forever, which is an easy name. And I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, just south of Pittsburgh in an area called Peters Township. So people that from the Northeast kind of live in townships. So
Okay.
that was where I lived. And then when I was around 15, my parents decided that they wanted to live half the year in the Bahamas, that we had been going there a lot. But then they said, yeah, but that's what we're doing. So boarding school became my option.
So where did they want to live?
They wanted to live in a tiny, tiny island. It's called Cat Key, CATCAY, and it's about 70 nautical miles, triangulated off of Fort Lauderdale, Miami. And at the time, we used to fly to Miami and take that little seaplane over there, which was a whole other adventure that
Okay.
you would see. I mean, we would get in the harbor and take off.
So
And it's a half-hour flight.
forgive my ignorance. Is that part of the British Virgin Islands, part of the US Virgin Islands, part of the US proper? Like, I have no idea.
The Bahamas is their own country. They were originally part of the Commonwealth and they became an independent country. I would say, I don't know exactly, but maybe in the 50, 60, somewhere not terribly long ago. But they are their own country. They are very proud of that. And I mean, it's the people there are just wonderful, but it is a different pace. And when my parents moved there, there was only one phone on the island and it was in the office. And so anytime I have to call, I'd have to call the office, then somebody in a golf cart would go down to my parents and say, come back, call your daughter. So it was really very remote, but very relaxing for that very reason. And it was full of, it was an island developed by my parents' closest friends. And their last name's Rockwell. So they were doing kind of the man on the moon type thing at the time. So there were a lot of interesting people coming and going from the island at that time, and they would enjoy the privacy of hiding kind of over there. So it was, when I tell people stories about some of the people that came through, I think they think I'm on drugs, and I'm like, I'm just giving you the highlights, not the minutia that I saw as a very curious child. Wait, what?
So
They're
you're
with whom?
So you're 15 and your parents just say, we're sick of
Yeah,
waiting.
we want to kind of go half and half now. And so, you know, I was always okay with that. And so I actually found where I wanted to go in Canada. And it was a co-ed, very tiny, small boarding school. I was the only American there. So I wanted to have that kind of experience there. And there were a lot of embassy kids that went to this school. So it was very international. And I love that because I just got exposure without even thinking about it. But I wanted to go there because it was co-ed, and I had brothers. And so I didn't want to go to an all girls school because I thought I might not fit in because I don't know how to deal with a sister and sharing. I didn't share well. So that's kind of how that ended up, and that worked out well. And then
So let me ask though, are you the youngest in your siblings?
I'm middle with my brother on either side.
So I'm just really curious, and this has nothing to do with needlepoint, but I just find this fascinating because I lived a very relatively boring life, lived the same place pretty much until I went to college and blah, blah, blah. So your parents are living in Pittsburgh. They decided to go just half the year to Cat K?
Because they can't really, and my dad became a resident. My mother did not, but I think there were time limits that you couldn't be there without being a citizen.
That makes sense. So they kept their house in Pittsburgh. So they lived in Pittsburgh I'm presuming the summer months, and went to Cat K in the winter months.
Yeah. So my dad was a very successful horseman and is actually in the Hall of Fame. But yeah, so that's an aside. So our summers were spent at the racetrack. So I grew up at the racetrack in the summers. So yeah, and you can see maybe this is one of his Horse of the Year trophies in the background I have right there.
Yeah. So for those of you that are listening on one of the podcast platforms rather than watching us, there's a beautiful statue, statue in Vicki's background. So yeah,
so that, I mean, and because I think I was the only girl and I hung out, I was at go along with everything that, you know, they wanted me to do. They would say, we're doing this, and I'd say, okay. My brothers were more, you know, I don't know what they were doing.
Oh gosh.
But so that was good. So that was, and then I decided, I originally thought then I'd go to college, or they call it university in Canada. And I applied to one school, and then my parents said, why don't you apply to Vassar too? So I went there for an interview, and I decided, yeah, I'd do that. But I wasn't sure I wanted to do that because my parents were pushing it. And I thought, well, they're pushing it, I may not want to do it. But so I applied early decision because I thought I'm not going to get in. And I hadn't done my ACTs or SATs because I was in Canada. They don't require that. So I thought, well, you know, I'm never going to get in, because I told the admissions director, I just can't do that. I mean, I'm so far away. And, but anyway, it all worked out good. I went there for 4 years, had a great time. And then, but my parents have always worked for themselves. I mean, they had their own wholesale travel business. So I graduated from college on a Saturday, drove home on Sunday, and started to work on Monday. So while life was good, life was always full of work. There were no free rides in our household. So,
and this is probably another ignorant question. Explain to me what wholesale travel means.
So my dad was one of the first they called them tour operators to Hawaii for United Airlines, which then segued into United Vacations. And you can see those companies that are on like united.com when it says, would you like to add a hotel or whatever, my dad always had those prepackaged, and he was one of the first whole charter operators into Disney World in Orlando back in the day when it was just Polynesian and Contemporary, and then the 4 hotels over at Lake Buena Vista. So we've been to Disney a lot, because if there was an empty seat, my dad would say, you know, you want to go for the weekend? Oh, sure.
Well, so as a kind of ironic aside, you spent all this time at Lake Buena Vista growing up, and now here you are, probably going to market next March in 2025.
I can't wait.
Lake Buena Vista.
I know. Buena Vista.
Oh, sorry, I'm even saying it wrong.
That's okay. But anyway, so it's, but anyway, so that started the travel thing. And then when I worked for my parents for 10 years, and it was great, but it was very repetitious. And so I decided that I wanted to do retail, which would be just like a typical travel agent. And I had been doing typical travel agent things for my parents' friends. And then I kind of got my own little clientele going. And then it segued into, I started with one or two athletes. And then the fact that I never mentioned anything, never talked about it. And so then that kind of grew my business. And so that's how I kind of got into the sporting world a little bit. Although my dad was a horseman in a little bit of the sporting world anyway, which is just that way that sphere works. Kind of like if you're an attorney or a doctor, you're kind of in the medical world. So once you're in one sport, you're kind of, you can lean into the other areas. So that's really, that's what I did entirely in my business. I did travel for professional athletes. And now in my interior design business, that's kind of, I have them too.
Okay, so we so let me ask one other question, because we didn't cover this. What did you study in college?
I was a history major, which of course gives you no capability to do anything.
Well,
and
it gives you the ability to think and to understand things, but it's not necessarily recognized in the working world the way it should be, in my opinion.
it isn't. And at Vassar, the history major was all reading. So we would have to read maybe 10 or 12 books for a class. And then it was almost a little law-like in terms of I'd read it and all of it was, tell me how you feel about it and cite something from every book. So you could never not read everything, and you could never not have understood what was in each book. And then I could kind of tell it in my story, just as though we all look at something and we all see it just slightly different. So then I would say it the way I would write my papers based on how I viewed it, and you would write the papers based on how you viewed it. And so it was, and my classes were 6 to 8 people. So there was no funny business going on at all.
So the back row at all.
Pardon me?
No,
there was no hiding out. There was no, if I was skipping a class because I just didn't want to go, I'd run into someone. They're like, why weren't you there? I'd say, I mean, you couldn't lie. I just said, I just didn't want to go. No.
Too much. Okay. So now, sorry, I just felt like I something I'd never known about you. So fast forward to today, and you wear at a professional basis two different, very different, but somewhat related hats. So you,
yes.
What percentage of your time do you think you spend on your interior design business?
Well, that ebbs and flows. So I'm either very busy with someone because I don't have anybody work with me on any of that, because I almost really for a little bit of privacy reasons. And so that's kind of, I have my corral of people that I can't really take anybody new anymore, because their stuff kind of ebbs and flows. They have multiple situations that kind of sometimes stay or come and go as well. And it just really works out well for me. But I could be not busy for 2 months, 3 months, and then something pops in and I'm ready to go. So, but I love it. But it's really helps with the color. So I think, which is important with threads and paints and things like that, I mean, my eye is always looking at color, because of both of them.
So where did your interior design training come from? Like obviously it's probably some natural God-given gifts of knowing what you like. And then so how did you go from look at isn't my apartment great to I'm decorating for, let's call them the rich and famous. I don't know who they are, but
Yeah, yeah. So, but and kind of that happened in the Bahamas because it was, things would get run down, properties on this little island would get run down for various reasons, and families would then sell them or whatever. And my dad would get them, and he would have my mom and I fix them up, keep up, flip them or whatever type thing, but not really flipping in those days. But you had to do the whole property. So we had to put in, I'm just going to call it art and utensils, towels. I mean, everything had to go in there. And so I kind of learned how to do all of that early because it was something I'd go there. And again, there was no sitting around our place. My mom said, I need help down here, blah, blah, blah. So I'd go help her because I enjoyed it. And then when Dawn and I moved to Dallas from California, one of the largest design centers is here, which I used to come to anyway. And where we live right now, literally it's a mile away and it maybe takes 2 minutes to get to from where I live. So it just made everything extremely easy and very, very possible. So I just sort of thought, I went and got all my license. So I'm an ASID qualification, which is biggest thing in our industry. And so I don't know.
so
Just love it.
And self-trained and self-studied and it's all worked out.
Yeah, yeah. And I think just by it's by doing. I find we can be so studied in
Agreed.
and things, but until you have to just do it. So, I mean, if you're studying acting, you need to do it. If you're a doctor, you need to get in there and see patients and do things because everything is just different. And, I mean, you order all these things and they come in and you think it should go there, but, things need to get tweaked all along the way.
Right. Well, it sounds like a classic apprenticeship type situation.
Everything is,
For sure. So, let's think about this. So you were working with your parents, you got married. Is that when you moved to San Diego?
I met Dawn in the Bahamas.
Okay.
My mother and her girlfriend fixed me up with him. And so we met and we just really got along. And he had just sold his company maybe about 7 months prior to when I met him. So he was recovering from 25 years of just grinding, working and traveling, et cetera, et cetera. He was in the tech business and just a lot of international travel. And I remember him saying, when we're getting together, he said, my goal is I live here and here. And if I'd never have to get on an airplane for any other reason, that's my lottery win because I'm tired of traveling. So if for whatever reason you want to see the world, not your guy. I've already seen it and I never want to see anything else again. Just want to mellow yellow and hang out.
So then how did San Diego come into the picture?
He had a house in San Diego. And I hadn't really been to San Diego, but for a travel conference, which was sort of convention center, that whole scene, and you're out. So I hadn't been there. And he took me out there. His house was pretty spectacular. And it's great. I mean, I was very sad to leave there. We moved there from here because his dad who became part of his package. I came with a Samoyed and Leo, Dawn's dad, came with Dawn, which was wonderful because wonderful addition. But anyway, his dad kind of wanted to move here.
And we haven't identified here. Here is Dallas. Correct?
Dallas. I'm in Dallas. Yeah. So that's why we came back to Dallas. And I was fine with it. Obviously, wherever Dawn wanted to go, I was good with. But my dad is actually Texan. So it's not as though I'm completely alien to Dallas. So, but it's great here, but I miss the water. I mean, I'm looking at your water and it just, yeah, it's like my happy place.
Yeah. And I've read numerous articles, again, segueing about how if you have grown up on the water, it's really hard for your psyche to be away from water for any length of time.
Yeah, it is. And Pittsburgh is on 3 rivers. So, and my mom had a lake house. And so, I mean, I'm just used to water. There would be months when I wouldn't even go in the ocean because I was always afraid of eels and jellyfish and just kind of the riptide could appear, et cetera, et cetera. And so, I mean, it's not as though I sat out in the sun. I'm very pale like you, but it is just like I could sit here and just look at your water all day long and be very, very happy.
It is really nice. I can't complain about that. Okay. So what we haven't touched base on at all is during all of these chapters of your life, when did needlepoint become a part of it? When did you learn to stitch?
I hate to be so cheesy, but I stitched for my boyfriend in college.
Oh, I do remember you telling me that. Is that what you learned?
Yes. Yeah. So I still have a picture of that in somewhere, but I stitched a piece for him. He was a climber. So I stitched this. I could only do tent, whatever, but I did do the ropes kind of off it. So it was kind of cute, but I stitched then. So there you go, the old cornball. Stitched for my college.
So what do they say? Did the curse come true? Did you stitch for him and then you guys broke up?
We broke up. Yeah, I mean, obviously he was a year older than me, so things went.
That's what I was.
And he went on to greener pastures, and I was still, a low life in college.
My shop used to be in half knitting and half needlepoint. We are now just needlepoint. So there's this, curse in the knitting world that you don't ever knit your boyfriend a sweater because it's sure to be the end of the relationship. And so some people say it carries over to the boyfriend belt. You don't make your boyfriend a needlepoint
right
until you're engaged.
And I guess because this is a big belt community here in St. Louis, just kind of in the central, is when I hear people say, I'm stitching my boyfriend a belt, in my head, I'm thinking, oh,
do it. Don't do it.
It's for your dad or you.
So funny. So that was the beginning of your stitching career. So is that when you were at Vassar? Did you have friends who taught you, or did the local?
Yes. So my friends, I had one friend who stitched a lot as well. So we would just stitch, not as a group or anything, but I'd always have some sort of project going. And then I would do eyeglass cases in the Bahamas. I had projects that I would just keep at my parents' place. When I'd go down there, I would just stitch whatever I could do. And I have them. I have these eyeglass cases that I stitched, but I just keep them. And so I don't know, but I love it. And then I got busy with work. I mean, people would get busy with their growing a family or something. And I didn't stitch for a long time. And then I had more time when we lived in California. And I got back to it, like, that's when I stitched. I mean, all of the ornaments on my tree, I have a tree here at the office, and all my ornaments, my needlepoint ornaments are on it. And I realized I was very not busy in the late 90s. Yeah. But anyway, so that's fun.
Well, I think with most stitchers, stitching ebbs and flows in our lives. Like there's times where, I mean, sadly, for many stitchers, if you're having a difficult time, you stitch a lot because it's your therapy. Sometimes you're stitching a lot because you're on vacation or you're in a break from college or whatever, and you have the time and it's bringing you joy in a different way. And I just think it comes and goes for a lot of people. So
yeah,
that makes it very fun. So then how did you segue from being an interior designer who liked to stitch to suddenly being a vendor and doing a lot of different things in the needlepoint world? How did that flip?
Yeah. So I was stitching stockings and pieces for ghost stitching, for people that had various reasons that they couldn't stitch a stocking. And so, and I enjoyed doing that, obviously not for free, but it made me feel good that I was able to help them, and whether or not it was just providing that very special piece for them, or they just never finished the project too. So I really got a
We've
great
talked about
fulfillment
before,
out of doing that.
some number, and I should have warned you ahead of time. I was going to ask you this question, but I think you told me before that you've stitched like how many stockings for other people?
I mean, at 30, 40, I mean, I really, and then also other pieces. I mean, pillows, substantial ornaments, but quite a few. And I really, really liked doing that. And Dawn would see me doing it because I would stitch at night watching TV. But I would say, I mean, I'm going to watch TV anyway. So look, I'm doing this. And he'd say, for 2 cents an hour. I mean, really? So anyway, that after a while, I started thinking I should see what I could do product wise for our industry. And I looked it up because I wasn't sure I had the pictures. I think it was, hold on, I wrote it down. 2017, Destination Dallas, which was here. And
You
I
shared
figured,
the room with Patricia?
well, and at the time, Patricia didn't want her name out there, if you remember. I had her little were they 1 inch or 2 inch, little framed pieces?
Yes,
And,
yes.
and she didn't unveil herself. I was showing them, and people would say, oh, can you paint? I'm just going to say an apple. And I'd say, well, I'll check into it, because I'm thinking, I'm not doing this. But she was nervous about it maybe not working out and didn't want her name exposed. And so, but so
So
that went on.
I didn't realize that that was your first market, because it was also, it was my second market as a shop owner. I went to TNNA in June, which would have been in either Cleveland or Cincinnati or Columbus, because I always get the C cities confused. Sorry, Ohioans. But I think I was in Cleveland. Not sure. And then Destination Dallas was my second market and my first time ever to Dallas.
Yeah.
And I didn't really, and I met you that trip because I think I bought your, weren't
I
they
was
like
doing totes.
totes that were like vinyl coated or something?
Yes. Uh-huh.
And carried quite a few of those. And, but I had no idea that was your first market. And
Yep. So that was my first market, and I did the totes. And then, and that was, I mean, the totes were really successful, but it required a lot of space that, Dawn said, do you really want to be hauling these big boxes to ship at this point in time? I mean, this is supposed to be sort of fun, and you'd look like a pack rabbit. So anyway, so then I started thinking, well, what could I do a smaller scaled? And also the thought is that if we were to be somewhere for a period of time, I didn't want to have to do a U-Haul of products so that I could maintain shipping, that I'd have small product.
right.
And then that's when I went into the chatelaines. And then, but what happened is I had a chatelaine, because I wear on the plane to stitch. And I was connecting through Austin Airport, and because I'm kind of rough sometimes, I took it off my neck in the waiting area to get on my plane. I don't know why I was taking it off. And the thing exploded. So the beads went everywhere. And Austin people are very organic, and they were saying, there's 2 beads under there. I mean, I'm crawling on this floor thinking I'm going to get black mold disease. I'm sure this carpet's never been cleaned, trying to pick up every single tiny, tiny bead. I mean, they were the little tiny beads. And so I thought, that's why mine are all double knotted, because if they break, there's not an explosion. I mean,
Right.
what I went through. But then that's when I thought, these need to be larger beads, and they need to be double knotted. And that's how that started.
So what I think is really fun is we've now kind of walked through all these back careers. So all those years of a travel agent and doing wholesale travel things and retail travel things kind of led you indirectly into this little niche that you have developed in the needlepoint industry of really great tools for when you're traveling. And we use them outside of that too, because I'm not a huge traveler, although I guess I'm on a plane a lot, but it's more work related. But yeah, I find that really interesting. So
Yeah, so that's kind of what I thought. I'll keep that because that's what I like and I need. But I also think our community, people travel for classes, for retreats, for just community and Facebook groups. I feel like the needlepoint world is a very mobile community versus, I don't know what others there are, but I'm just guessing. It amazes me how much people travel for. I mean, you had a group of people come from Dallas that were going to a Linda convention.
they were fabulous, and shout out to the Lindas. That was probably one of the funniest days ever that people were coming to Frankenmuth, Michigan, which is like 2 hours north of Detroit, to go to a Linda convention. And I was like, wait, what's a Linda convention? And they were all like, well, my name's Linda, and my name's Linda, and my name's Linda. I'm like, oh my gosh, that is hysterical. So
It's hysterical.
they were lovely. And I think they had a fantastic time.
Yeah, but I think they met through needlepoint, but I'm just saying, I think our needlepoint world travels. And so that's why I kind of keep in mind that, I mean, the tassels with all the tools, I think personally they should be in every bag because it just sometimes, I mean, we all have our multiple stitching projects that we're working on. And we just feel as though I just want to do something little. I just want to do tent, basket weave, continental, whatever, and just be sort of relaxing of the mind. And then there's other times when you think, oh, I'm going to work on an intricate open stitch on a background and just kind of get
Well,
that.
since we're talking about something that maybe not everybody knows what we're talking about. So this happens to be, and I'm going to say my first chatelaine because I'm kind of a chatelaine junkie. So for those of you that maybe aren't, I don't want to say as fancy as Vikki because that sounds derogatory. I don't mean it that way. But a chatelaine is just a necklace. It's just
Yes.
another word for a necklace that holds stuff, right? Is that probably the proper?
Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah.
It's a necklace that holds stuff. And for those of you that aren't on the YouTube platform that are listening, this is my first chatelaine, which are freshwater pearls, and it is probably the best seller at my shop because it's just tried and true, and it goes with everything. And who doesn't like a nice set of pearls? And these are freshwater pearls; they're not just plastic beads, right?
Right.
And then you include a lobster clasp of some sort. What's the other word for this thing?
Well, it's just called a clasp, but it's in the shape of a heart.
Yes, but isn't a cabineer? What am I trying to say? Do you know what I'm talking about? We were
No.
coming up. There's another name for this that I apologize that I can't remember. So this is a darling little heart shape. I've added a few little things to mine because it's tried and true and I love it. But Vikki includes a pair of collapsible scissors, which are here, a cutter, which this has a razor blade on the inside, right? A circular razor blade.
Yes.
Can't cut my finger. I'm pushing my finger all the way around this circular object. It's not going to cut my finger, but you can slide your threads into those little notches and they will cut. A needle threader and this is like magic at the smallest thing. This is the world's best like miniature laying tool in the world. So
Yeah.
come on it. And then this is probably the object I use the most. Is this a 5 times magnifier? Is that what I remember?
It's either 5 or 7.
Okay, I think it's 5 because I've looked it up before. If
Okay.
you said it's either 3 or 5, I would have been like, I'm not sure either. I'm sure it's 5. And then I add a regular pair of scissors to mine, and I add my little needle fobs that we sell. But I use this all the time. I don't always wear it. A lot of times it's just like next to me, but because everything's connected and it's large, it's easy to grasp and find. When I travel on a plane or in a car, I will put it around my neck so things are at the ready.
Yes.
And your first chatelaines, oh gosh, how many do I have of those, Vikki? Like probably 5 or 6. We're similar but different when you first.
Yeah. So my first ones were, and also you're missing your threader on there. Do I need to send you one?
I think it was here. Sorry. I think I was too busy asking other questions, but it's there.
Okay, I just want to make sure you have everything because it's a 5-piece toolkit. So the first one, I wear glasses. And but I'm always, you know, kind of putting them in my hair, but then my hair gets wonky. So I started to wear them through a loop so that I didn't do all that stuff. My first necklace had a threader because I need that to thread my needle. And then it had a little loop on it, and they were crystal beads, which are less expensive. So, and I think I even called that Where's My Glasses series, because they would just do that. And then I started I think what we tried to do at market is just try to enhance things, because I didn't want that to go away, because they were selling really well. But I thought I need to add components, and really that's what happened. I think I added the mini laying tool next, or no, the cutter, because I was doing those clover cutters that we can all get.
Right.
They're nice, but I went to the expense of getting my own made that I think are really, really strong. And then I added the mini laying tool, and then the magnifier and the folding scissors.
But
And go away with the loop, because the loop, I think, didn't really do anything.
still loop your glasses.
Yeah.
To any one of these.
Right. Yeah.
There's also a phase where you were making chatelaines that had the tools on it, but you'd take your tools off. And a lot of times they had a really beautiful, like, vintage piece that you would find different places. So I'm gonna say maybe like a month ago on unboxing, I was wearing this really cool necklace. Everyone's like, "What's that necklace?" And I'm like, "Well, that's one of the original Victoria Whitson chatelaines that had more of like a decorative piece on it that was a statement piece necklace."
Yes. And so I did those, and up until COVID, because I had all these little haunts in California, and I would go out there semi-regularly for retreats or just classes. I don't know why, and maybe because I used to live out there, I kind of leaned into being comfortable just popping out there for a couple days.
The Needlepoint Nook of La Jolla is fantastic. That's all.
Yes. And Vikki has become a great friend as well. But I had all these little like nooks and crannies, and when I say antique places, not super fancy, but they just had great stuff. And I would just, if I saw something great, I would just, and they might have three, I'd take all three, one, whatever but I had my little places to go. And then during COVID, it was all shut down, and these poor people just.
Yeah. And you weren't traveling, and yeah.
Yeah, and it became harder, and I had some stuff and I had some stones, but they weren't my best.
Right.
Sometimes I'd have to buy a lot of things. I mean, a LOT, a grouping of items. So I'd have 15 pieces, and 10 of them were worthy, or 8. And so I'd have these. So I was sitting on those extra 7, and I'd look at them and think, would I want that? No.
Right.
So I just sort of got away from it, and really, unfortunately, but I do have some pieces that I did keep just because they were extra special, but they're more like onesie twosies. I may bring those to market.
Why not?
Yeah.
Well, and I know, like, so this is one of your newer ones. I did treat myself to this the other day.
Yes.
So cute. So this is the multi-pez pinks, I think is it called.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And so they're kind of like translucent beads, all different colors for those that aren't looking. So this is, or aren't watching the video version. This one has like pinks and corals and a little bit of light blue and a little bit of barely red, with all the tools, of course. But what's really fun about these, even though they don't have the big statement piece on them, it is very easy to take your tools off and open up your little clasp and put it on. I say it's very easy. My hair is in the way. As a double necklace. So when you're traveling, you still have a little statement piece.
How cute that is. And that was the idea with those original necklaces with a piece on them, was that you could travel and then just take the tools off, and you'd have a necklace with a stone on it, or a medallion, or some sort of pendant. And I mean, that was my thought then, was that it was a two-way thing. But I mean, just look at that. That's so adorable.
Yeah. So, and then you still have your tools at the ready. And I think maybe this this like hanging out tool piece maybe led to the tassels.
Yes. Well, but I had the tassels, I think I had the tassels around maybe one market away from the chatelaines, the
Okay.
original chatelaine. And then they just became so easy, and I try to keep them well priced, even though things have gone up a little bit. I just try to keep them at a certain level so that people feel comfortable just, getting another one and just throwing it in their bag, and it come with a little pouch
So do
too.
the tassels come with these same 5 tools?
Same 5 tools,
And
except they don't have the kind of the color coded scissors for the tassels.
right, they're gonna have
They
silver.
come the steel with the silver, which is what was on your pearls.
Yes, and so there's also vegan leather, correct?
Yes, yes.
To it in about 10 different colors, if I
Oh, I
remember.
mean, I've got like 20. This is one rack.
Oh gosh, how fun
And
is it? So show those again because that's really fun. So they
this isn't even all of them.
the tassels are in leather, so they are easy to clean because I know that people have said, well, if I get a white one, it's gonna get dirty. You just wipe them off. So Vicky's showing us probably like half of her colorways.
Uh-huh.
That rainbow one's really cute. I don't think I've had the rainbow one before. So some of them have the same color on the inside of the tassel. Some of them have uh contrasting color on the inside. And then with the lobster clasp on the top, that's where your tools are then attached. And also that large lobster clasp can attach to your purse or your project bag or, right?
Yes, exactly. And the rainbow one, I will just give a shout out to your good friend Megan, because she was doing, I think in May, some sort of class or something, and she wanted something in that colorway. So I can do custom colors.
Yes. So speaking of custom colors, you've done that for other things. So you have your fabulous stitch and thread journal.
Yeah.
And you know what we forgot to talk about? We're going to back up for one quick second because I bet you this is something you maybe used when you were doing your Royal School of Needlework training.
I did. I did. Yep.
So,
I used my pink one.
so let's talk a little bit about what the Royal School of Needlework is for those people who don't know it, and talk about their certification program because there's some that's in person, there's some that's virtual, and then your involvement with that.
Yeah. And so that kind of happened during COVID. I mean, it sort of started during that time frame, because in the back of my head, I mean, I think we're all, I think, very, I love to learn, and I love to learn from people that really, I mean, I prefer to go to a really hard school and be like the down the ladder than be like the smartest kid something not so difficult. So I had always wanted to go to Royal School, because I thought, I mean, I'm going to be like low man on the totem pole, but I'm going to just like soak it in, learn. And
They have a couple in-person campuses in Great Britain. One just outside of London, as I recall.
right outside London is their main one. And
I know
and
Abigail Cecile, that's how she got her training. If people are listening are familiar with her, but she's actually a Michigan girl, and she decided instead of going to traditional college to go, and she lived there for 2 or 3 years and did all the things. But during COVID, they made a little.
during COVID, I think so many businesses and schools, et cetera, had to sort of segue and start doing an online option based probably to survive in some sort of sense, in terms of they can't have in-class teaching. And it's hard to remember, but we really were so unsure of everything in terms of, is this the way it's always going to be or whatever? So they thought, what are we going to do? So they opened up an opportunity for online, where you could get your certificate and diploma program, which was always sort of an 18 to 24-month intensive program, where I'd have to be in London or outside London. And just at this point in my life, that was never going to happen.
And that's what Abby did, but Abby was like 19. So there we go.
Yeah. I'm old, so that wasn't going to happen. And so when this popped in, I thought, I'm signing up, because once I'm signed up, they can't throw me out, and I'm going to have to finish it. there's going to be a group of, even if it's how many people that do sign up and get in, and I was glad that they got accepted me, that they're going to have to take us across the finish line online.
Right.
So, so then, so that all worked out. It's a 4-segment certification diploma program. So I've done 2 of the 4.
And they're not just focused on needlepoint, right? It's embroidery and crewel work and.
Right, Jacobean, and so it's needlework at Royal School of Needlework. So it's not, there's one, I mean, I've just finished the 2nd segment, which is what I would call the more needlepoint version of it all. And but the others are, you can, in your module, you could, just like in college, you can pick, do I want to do black work or, but there were the 2 main ones were the Jacobean, which I did, and then the needlework, which is more needlepoint oriented, I've finished as well. So, and then the other 2 become maybe what you want to do, gold work. I think maybe wherever you're leaning into,
Right.
Japanese embroidery. I can't think of the other ones. I've taken a pause on it only because the time change was really difficult on my life.
I can't even tell you how many times I personally have looked at it. And Vikki and I have talked in the past over the history of our friendship of how we are not morning people. And so I've looked at it and I thought, holy moly, I'd have to get up at like 5 in the morning because I'm at Eastern time to do this. And as much as I want to do this, like I just don't have it in me. And you're an hour earlier than I am. So how you have done even half of this is like mind blowing to me because
it was terrible.
Yeah, it's not like up and raring to go at 4 a.m. Like my husband's an early bird. He gets up every day at 5 a.m. because that's what feels right to him. But I don't know anybody who gets up by choice earlier than 5 a.m. So
yeah, so I'd have to get up by 3. I started off, of course, getting up at 3 and then, getting dressed. And by the end, I was getting up at 3:35. The coffee was going and I would put on like this, and then I'd have my pajama bottoms on the bottom because I'm only sitting here. And then it wasn't until, for whatever reason, I'd walk away and someone say, well, you're in your pajamas. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess so.
crack of dawn here. The roosters
Yeah, but it was, the time was really kind of what got, because it was 2 days a week. So 2 days a week, I'd be trying to go to bed at 9 or 10. And
Right.
I'm a late night person, same thing. I'd stay up till my body keeps me, midnight is my better time zone, and really not working until 10-ish is my better. I make bad decisions before 10.
Well, I hope you
Decisions.
can it because I think it's fantastic, but I can see how it is challenging being so many hours away time zone wise. So yeah.
And it's a 7-hour class. So, in some instances, people are like, oh, well, could you go back to bed? I said, I mean, I've been up Zoom classing with other fabulous people for 7 hours. So, I mean, I'm wide awake by this point. And just like any other class that people go to or retreat, part of it is you're learning, but I'm learning more watching what you're doing.
Right.
Or watching what the other people are talking about, or they'll ask a question that even at this point I'm thinking, I don't want to ask that, I'll sound stupid. And then they'll ask and I'm like, yes.
So that's why I was bringing up this Stitches and Threads journal is one of your products. This is not readily available color. I think you have, what colors are normally for ordering?
Mine are pink and navy.
Pink and navy. And I was guessing that you would have used this for your class. So it's just like a classic for anyone who's done a bullet journal. It's a classic bullet journal size A5. Does that sound right?
Yes.
And more normally like a bullet journal, which people would use for organizational things, comes with like a dot matrix on the inside. But yours, of course, comes with the classic needlepoint graphs. So
exactly, a grid.
yeah, so this green you custom did for my shop. I use it. I write a lot of stitch guides. So there's the notes for, let's see, I think this is for part of my Whimsy Santa, which we'll talk about. And it's just a great place to keep track of things that you're learning, whether it's in a class or watching an Instagram description of a stitch. everything can be here. I also keep track of things that I've stitched each year and when I've stitched them. So I've got different segments, a little place for a pen. They're just fantastic.
And you have a new color and your logo's on the back, which I love.
Yeah, so here's our new
Oh, I
color.
love this one.
So, and then color on the back. So we were almost done with these, and I'm like, why would I order another lot of these? Because I had to order a decent amount of them. So why
Yeah.
would I order more of the same color when I could have a new color? So yeah,
Yes.
they're really fantastic. And I do use mine regularly. And I think they're great. So you also have some newer travel bags. You've got a bunch of needle minders.
I have, yes.
So,
I
and
don't
that's all on your website. So the average stitcher can go to your website and look at shop, but they don't actually buy anything from your website because you are wholesale only, correct?
I'm wholesale only, so people can see everything that's on my website and then go to their local needlepoint store and purchase it or call or just get on, for instance, I would go onto woolandfloss.com
Wool floss, yep.
and then you buy everything, that you'd want that, of mine or of anybody else's. But generally, I think that's what people do, right?
Yeah, but they can pre-shop on your site if they want to. And what is really fantastic, I feel like you're one of the first adapters of this, that as a wholesale buyer, I can go on your website and order for my shop, as opposed to like our website, excuse me, our industry is a very small industry in the scheme of industries. And so for the most part, many times when I'm placing orders with my vendors, I'll just send them an email. Hey, Vicki, please send me the following. Bop, 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 bop. But I can actually go on your website and it's a shoppable website for me as a wholesaler. So once you're approved with a wholesale application, I just buy and you pick and stuff and away it goes. And you have your payment, you have the stuff to make your label, and I get my product really quickly. So I think it's fantastic. And
Well, love that.
the newest additions to your website, we can't be remiss in talking about because it is super exciting. Is you now have a whole line of canvases that's actually kind of like it's a three-legged stool, maybe. I come
Yes.
from the retirement plan industry, so you've got three parts of canvas lines. So let's talk about how your canvas line, how this current canvas line evolved and is part of your website and the different segments of it. And then of course people would go to your website, the wholesalers go to your website to order. So you now, as of January, I think,
January, the end of January of this year.
represent Tapestry Tent
Yeah.
and
Liz Goodrick Dillon,
I got to get all the names in the right order. Liz Dillon and Ashley.
Dylan Davis,
Thank you.
maiden name. Yeah.
Yes. So tell us how all that evolved and how that happened.
Yes. So Susan Roberts, who is, a grand dame of our industry, who has her own huge design line, which your friend Megan is now caring for. And yes. And then Susan represented Liz, who painted, she was Tapestry Tents. So she just painted under this name, Tapestry Tents, but it was Liz. And then she started painting under her name and her daughter's Ashley. So that's really, it's two people, three names. But anyway, so Susan was representing her forever. And then Susan was looking to retire. And I got to be friendly with Susan because my best friend from way long ago lives on St. Simon's Island. And I went down to visit her. And while I was there one time, I said, I think Susan Roberts is here. It's so small. I wonder where she is. So I Google mapped it and I went over there. I just popped in. We brought some cupcakes and went over there and just said, hey. And my friend Beth Ann's you may have met her in Charlotte. She's very, hello. So anyway, next thing you know, Beth Ann's like, what are you doing for dinner? Come over to my house for dinner. So I don't know, we just got to be friendly. And anytime I'd go see Beth Ann, which is semi-regularly, I'd call Susan and say, I'm going to pop in, say, hey, whatever, come to dinner with us. And she had talked to me about both lines. And it just seemed at the time of my life, at this point in time, having all of it was just like too much in a lot of respects for
Right.
how I saw my life going forward. And then it was actually last Frisco market. Susan came up to my room and said, I have it all figured out. I was said, well, what? And she said, I'm going to carve this out for you. And so that's how that kind of came to be, because it's manageable.
Right. It's
I mean,
still,
in terms of
but yeah,
size, it's a lot, but it's not everything, as you know from.
well, good. So, I know, I wish I'd had it with me. I'm in the middle, actually, I'm at the very end of stitching the Halloween March, which I adore. So, for those of you that are not familiar with, those are by Ashley, correct?
Yes, Ashley does the marches.
So, they're all available in 18 and 13, is that correct?
I think they're not all on 13 because some of them would not translate on 13. And but some of them are on 13,
Okay,
but
so
not
I
all of them.
actually stitched the 18 version. So I have the Halloween March, and I kid you not, Vicki, it's got to be my personal goal to finish that by this Halloween. I have like maybe 30% of the background left to do. And one of the guys is dressed up as a Dracula, and I have his cape left. And I think that's all I have left. So marches are so cute because they are generally like a lineup of characters marching along, in the night or in the day or at the beach or wherever they are. And they are all just so fantastic. And so I'm almost done with the Halloween March, and I do own the Christmas March, but I haven't started it yet. So I'm
So
determined. They're fantastic. So
they are. So I'm surprised you haven't done the 4th of July march.
I'm tempted, but that eagle's intimidating. I don't like
Yes,
stitching.
I agree.
I have a very hard time stitching birds.
Yeah.
And I do own that field guide for birds book, which is fantastic if you are like me and intimidated by birds. So I really should take the jump, but I really should try to finish something first too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's always a good thing, right?
Yeah, so I love Ashley's marches. Liz had we were talking earlier, maybe you still have those nearby. I
Yeah.
think her evolution from where she started to where she's become is really interesting. And I don't mean that in a negative way, because where she came from was really fantastic, and then she got a lot more detailed. But it was really eye-opening to me because I think some people are intimidated by Liz's piece because there's so much beautiful detail, and they're scared to not like bring it to justice, I guess.
Yeah.
And so, but her beginning pieces, I think, are much more beginner friendly or advanced beginner stitcher. So maybe
They
you
are.
can
Do you want me to show them?
I think so, because I think it's really interesting if
I have them
they're
right.
still there. So Liz, so this first stocking was under Tapestry 10, correct?
Yeah, they both are.
Okay, so this is for those of that are just listening and not watching, absolutely gorgeous stocking with Santa golfing. He's putting, I believe, in this stocking, and but it has a lot of big open spaces. It would be very easy to stitch in a very traditional way. Would you agree with that statement?
Yes. I mean, I just feel as though an absolute beginner stitcher.
I mean, it's a big piece, so
Absolutely. But it's a
that's
big piece, but I think as we develop ourselves as stitchers, we do segments, meaning I would do his shirt, his pants. I mean, to me, that I wouldn't just think of it overall. I would kind of just stitch in segments, and then next thing you know, it's all finished.
right. And it's beautifully done, but there's not the extreme shading and detail that maybe her later pieces show.
I mean, this
Um,
is one color here.
yeah, I
I mean,
mean,
it's
it's
slightly color blocky almost.
right in a very good way. Like, I mean, it's
Yes.
beautifully done, but it's not scary looking. I think sometimes her pieces have so much detail that a newer stitcher thinks, oh gosh, I could never do that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so then let's look at her like
So
later
this,
down the line.
just to give everybody an idea, this one's number 150, okay? So this is 478. So I'm
So
just giving you time-wise, timeline.
a
So
number of years later.
yes, so here's what we're used to kind of looking at, don't you think,
Yes.
Melissa?
So it's much more painterly. Do you think that's the right term?
I didn't hear, what did you say?
Much more painterly.
Yes, but
So
I also think that her pieces or other artists' pieces that have a lot of shading, in my mind, they call for an open stitch,
agreed.
which then becomes quite quick in
Right.
and not so much where you think, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to get, 5 or 6 shades of kind of light blue here. No,
Right. Instead, do something with a variegated thread, maybe an
exactly.
over.
I always think red works, for something a little shiny or something, and just let the paint show through.
But that again, I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous, and it's not necessarily, like, to your point, going to take longer, but it takes more of a background in stitching to say, oh, I don't have to stitch this all in 10 stitch. I'm going to use an overdyed thread in an open stitch, let that beautiful painting show through that has been hand painted. So it's a little bit different. So I thought it was fascinating when you showed me that first one.
It's almost more of a thread knowledge too, which I think we all acquire. I always think of people with, that cook, because I don't cook, and I think, you start off and you want to, I still do slice and bake cookies, but if somebody were to start out cooking, eventually they just progress in their recipes, because I have friends that do cook or bake or whatever, and they're always wanting to try things. Or I mean, I was with someone the other night and we had some key lime pie and they said, oh, there's a little cinnamon in the crust. And I'm like, I just thought it tasted good, but okay. But so I think people want to learn threads too, I really do. And they've got to progress beyond, like, I mean, because we all started off, I did the same thing, 13 mesh, little sayings, little whatever.
And guess what? After I've stitched as long as I have, I still like to have a really basic stitch in my
Oh, absolutely.
brush or in my rotation, because yeah, some
Well, we
nights.
talked about that earlier, that it just is, we all need a project that's just basket weave tent continental, where I'm just sort of the day I just need to
Decompress. Yes.
not
sure.
have a lot of thought.
Right. So are all of your canvases on your website? Or are you still working on pulling them onto there?
No, they're all on there. And I really try to, with stores, kind of slightly beg, please buy off the website, because it keeps track of my inventory in terms of if I'm pulling stuff, I have to remember to go back and take it out of my inventory. And I have almost 100% record of never doing that.
Gotcha.
And so it will look like it's available and I've already sold it. So
I know for the most part, the average stitcher is listening to us, but we also do have some store owners. So if the store owners go to your website, the stitchers go to your website and shop, and then they would go to their local needlepoint shop, whether they're
and they can say, right.
The shop owner can shop for whatever's in stock. Very easy. I do it all the time. Now, recently there was something that I needed, which I believe was the Christmas Mart. It was out of stock. So then I emailed you. Is that what I should have done?
Yes. Yeah. And in 2025, I'm hoping to add a feature to my website where you can special order or order something that's back ordered, and it would help me keep track of my back orders as well, in terms of making sure that you get something that I don't currently have.
Gotcha. Let's talk about special orders. So if because I don't carry a lot of stockings at my shop, and I have found for my store, because I just have a very small footprint, you've been at my shop, it's not large. It's hard for me to carry stockings, because in order to carry stockings, I think you have to have a large breadth of them, and I just don't have the footprint for that.
Right.
So I will send people to different websites to shop based on what they're looking for. And I know some designers will say, oh, I love that one, but I want it toe facing left or toe facing right, or I want it on 18 or I want it on 13. Are the stockings that you have, or is that something that you can do?
Yes, so, and so we can definitely, I would say that 90% of the stockings I have in stock are on 18 mesh, toe to the right, which
Okay.
is, so people know,
Well, it's
the
not gonna
toe,
help because I
toe
may
to the right.
actually backwards.
Yes, but people, if you want to frame your fireplace, you might want them left and right. But, and then on 13 mesh, I do have a fair amount of styles that are on 13 mesh. Some of the translation doesn't work for 13 mesh. And so I will just say, can't be done because it would just distort the image. And then as far as anything going to the left, absolutely, it takes 8 to 10 weeks to order it because it has to be specially
Painting
painted.
service mirror image, is it? Correct.
Yes, yeah, just
Fantastic.
kicking to the left.
Okay.
So
And
we can definitely do that.
those, that would be an email to you and a special order, but
Correct.
ask their shop owner that they work with to ask you to do it toe
Yeah.
to the left instead of toe to the right. And if
Exactly.
they agree to a little bit of patience, it all can happen. So that's fantastic. So, and currently, unfortunately, and we did not talk about this, that Liz passed away about 6 months ago. Is that correct?
I think maybe a year-ish ago. So
I-
there will not be any more Liz tapestry tents. Well, tapestry tents kind of halted when Susan bought that art, and then Liz was continuing to paint under her name, but there will not be any more Liz produced art on campus.
But
And
you
then,
are continuing to produce the
right,
art.
because her pieces are classic. They're not, the art just doesn't go away. So, I mean, I think we know in our industry things that are adorable, but maybe slightly fad-ish or age-related, because I have lived a life where I've done kind of the same sequence of
Right.
things. But for stockings and stuff, I think, a lot of it is, this is certain style that I think
I
is
have
beautiful.
one customer who has become a very near and dear friend to me that you also know. I think she has stitched 8 Liz stockings. Like there.
Yeah, at least maybe 10, because she and her daughter both stitch for, they have a whole series for her house and a whole series for her daughter's house.
Amazing.
Yes.
Amazing people and stitchers. And so there may in the future be some newer Ashley designs, but that's to be determined, correct?
To be determined, correct. So
Well,
we're all hoping.
Ashley, if you're watching, we want more. We want more.
Yes, Ashley, we want more. Yeah, so and those are just for they're just beautiful. They're just so fun and slightly whimsical. There's not one, I have them all. So I think, oh, I'd love to do that one. Oh, no, I'd love this one, so.
Market is coming and I can't remember when we're dropping this versus when market is, but market. Oh, we forgot to talk about that. You are one of the hosts of the market, correct? 3 of you?
Yeah,
Work
2, Melissa and me.
Okay, I didn't know if Diane was still involved or not. So, okay, Diane, I think on your website it still says Diane's involved. So that's why I thought, oh, I should ask about that. But I should have asked you about that ahead of time. I apologize. So Melissa Prince and Victoria Whitson, in the heart of COVID said, and Diane was involved.
And Diane.
And was Don even involved?
Don was, I think, the first year-ish. Yeah.
Okay. So during the heart of COVID, the 4 of you and Don, being Don Lynch, who now is part of the Bradley Needlepoint Company, a group of designers, they kind of got fed up with, we can't take this, like not being able to be together in person. And you started out with this little tiny reunion, and I think there were like 25 vendors at that point in time.
And I sort of think of it more, we maybe had 3 floors of people.
Yeah, it was like, I feel like
between exhibitors and buyers, which are stores.
Yeah, I was thinking there were like 30 store owners or so and 25 vendors ish, and it was a very small like the brave ones who were going to leave home during COVID.
Oh God, I know. And we called it the reunion because it was more, we really just needed to get together as a community in terms of, I think everybody was just hankering to get together and say, oh my, like, we're out. What do you think? Oh my God,
And Megan and I came and shared a room, which we've never done before. We've never done since, but we're like, well, we don't know how this is going to work. We don't know how many people are going to be here. Let's just get a room and see what happens. And yeah, so it was, you were venturing forth and in all the best ways. And so here we are 4 years later, right?
yes.
Yeah.
So now we have almost every floor of the hotel, which are 13 floors. And sadly, we've had to, and I call it walking in the travel business, but we've had to walk 80 rooms to other hotels nearby because we just couldn't accommodate either exhibitors who needed 5 extra rooms for sleeping and for buyers. And, just, there just aren't enough rooms at the end. But fortunately, there's quite a few options within walking distance of where we are. And it's a very nice neighborhood, should I say.
Well, I will tell you, my old owner, for whatever this is worth, my old owner, when I used to go to markets with her, she would never stay at the hotel where the market was or the hotel that was attached to the convention center. She would always intentionally stay somewhere that was a block or two away because she said, otherwise, you never got fresh air for like 4 days. Like you just stayed in that enclave. And so she would intentionally do that. So it would force her to do a little bit of walking and get a little fresh air. And so hopefully, if anyone's out there who's unhappy about being a little bit off site, put on Jean's hat. And that was what she did on purpose. So,
Yeah. I think we get in enough steps at Reunion or Market, but the fresh air would be just wonderful.
Especially for those of us that are coming from more northern places that the weather's starting to turn, in the fall, and we want some nice warm weather that I love. It's not a bad thing for sure.
Yeah.
So Market is coming up in a few weeks. I know that you will do you have 1 or 2 rooms at Market now? Because I know
I've had as the joke, and Melissa said this, I said, I'm the nightmare person at the hotel because I've switched so many times to try to accommodate other people because I'm a little bit in flux, so to speak, this year. But I have a tiny conference room attached to a bedroom on the 2nd floor. And then I have quite a bit of hallway space. And then as sort of started off as a joke, but the sales manager said, well, we can put you in the hall down here and just give you some ropes. And I thought, well, that just about sums it up. I'm in the hall. So if people start to complain, say, come visit your host in the hall. But I think it's going to end up working out really well, actually, because I've got all of I call it Liz, all of my canvases. I mean, I have 9 racks. So I'm in my head because I'm in Dallas and Frisco is about 30 minutes north of here, but I'm just going to take everything up, wheel it in. And
so by racks, you mean like those collapsible rolling racks?
Clothing racks. Yes. Everything's on clothing racks with pink hangers, I will add.
I love it. I love it. So you'll have all of your canvases there.
I'm taking all of them because why not? I mean, if nothing else, someone could see some stockings that are kind of, I'll just say a little odd, but maybe they're going to find someone who's going to say, do you know anybody that's got da, 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 da? You're going to remember. I do know one.
Yeah, the Liz line
Liz has one.
Every hobby or industry or whatever. And then you will have all of your accessories there as well.
I'll have all of my accessories. I'm planning to put those all in the room with the conference table that you can't move, because I've got a permanent table there. So I'm just gonna get that all kind of dolled up and that'll be a good spot for the accessories. And then the racks, I'll just, be able to figure out where they best line up, so to speak.
So hopefully there will be some canvases that will be new to the shop owner's eye because the line is so broad.
Right.
Are there new accessories coming up the pipe?
I have some new chatelaine colors for sure. I have some new tassel colors. initially some of these colors I was going to hold off until market, but then our friend next door said, oh no, you need to bring these out right away. So some of these should have been new, but they're not. But I have more coming in, and I have new graffiti tote colors
Oh,
and some with new graffiti sayings on them.
oh, good.
And then I've got new needle minders, a few of them that are kind of snarky. But and then I've got one that I don't know if I want to say, kind of fun.
Yeah. You'll hold on to it. Good.
Yeah.
So new stuff to come see.
So just a few new things.
Good. And I felt like there was something I was going to ask you accessory wise, if there was a new version of, oh, how about your stitch deck?
My stitch decks, I didn't have time to come out with a third stitch deck. But I know what the next two are going to be. So I'll have a new one in Charlotte for sure.
Okay. Well, good.
Yeah.
Well, you do not let moss grow under your feet for sure. So we are excited to see what's coming up the pike. So thank you for spending time with us. Is there anything we didn't talk about that I left out that we should talk about that you can think of?
Talk about you just for a second. What do you got? What are you going to do for the day? This beautiful cottage. I mean, I can't, I mean, when I don't know how it's going to end up, but all I'm doing is really not looking at you. I'm looking at the water.
Well, good, hopefully. What
so
I should
beautiful.
is the Whimsy Santa. So for those of you that aren't familiar with this is one of Ashley Dillon Davis's pieces. And Liz and I have both loved this for the longest time. Sorry, there's too many Liz's in this conversation.
You're Liz.
Guild that is
Liz
my
Wake.
assistant manager at the Wool and the Floss. She and I like to do classes together, and we have been teaching this class. So in reality, this class piece is totally done. The real reality is Liz has done half of it, Liz Wakefield has done half of it, and I've done half of it. So it's basically almost all stitched. The stitch guide is fully written. We have one more segment to roll out to our 60 people taking the Zoom class. And you were fabulous to work with, Vicki.
Thank you.
We have a number in stock at my shop that we will roll out as soon as the final stitch guide is together. I am hoping to finish mine somewhat soon, and I have I don't know if I've told you this, Vicki, and I'm sure you're walking away to grab something relevant. But Megan will laugh because she says all of my guests leave me. So I don't know if Vicki's aware of that, but all of my guests leave me. So she's now left me too, but she's now come back. So this piece will be rolled out with a full stitch guide and class kit once the class is over in October. So it's turned out great. I have a local acrylic guy who works with us, and he's going to do a red acrylic tray to put it in, which I think will be fantastic. So I'm excited about that. So this has been really, really fun. So yeah, that's what I've been stitching in Ashley world. So maybe if I finish this, I can pull out my Christmas March once I finish that Halloween March. That's super close. So
I wanted to show your custom colors for your chatelaines. Can I do that?
yeah, absolutely. I need
So
to
this is your custom color.
which really looks
Yeah,
lovely.
it does. It all kind of goes together. So this is called the W and F chatelaine, and it comes with all the tools, of course, but I keep them kind of packaged without tools until they're headed out the door.
Yes,
But
yes.
this is W and F, Wool and the Floss. And then should I tell about this other one?
Sure. Were you watching unboxing recently when I said there's not a Melissa chatelaine, but there's a Liz chatelaine?
I know. Liz is Irish green, but we shall change that, Melissa.
Oh, I'm teasing you. You know
No,
that.
no. But anyway, this is kind of fun.
The tonal colors on that green are gorgeous, and I don't think you can.
They are. This is so beautiful. But look at these together. I mean, like, you really might need both.
So again, people who are just listening to us and not watching, Victoria has done a couple custom colorways for us. So there's a nice icy blue gemstone color that is exclusive to the Wool and the Floss. And then he created this gorgeous, like tonal Kelly green. The colors kind of are almost an ombre green. And because our Liz is Irish and loves all things Irish, she very sweetly named it the Liz Irish Green, but that's available to any store owner.
Yes. Oh, yes, they are. I mean, not the one, but the other for sure. But it's just, I wanted to let people see what we've done for you and especially for you type
And
thing.
we have another one in the works in
Yes.
our Halloween spooktacular. So stay tuned for that. We're hoping that we have something fabulous coming. Well,
Yeah.
but you know, time is always an issue, and I don't always think of things in the most timely fashion. So
No, because we're so busy all the time that it's all of a sudden, I mean, we're talking about the reunion and Melissa, I talked to Melissa earlier today and I said, I can't even believe this. I mean, it's the end of August and reunions in 3 weeks.
crazy.
It's insane.
Well, good. Well, this episode will be dropped before reunion, so we're excited about that. I'm excited to see you. I've loved spending time with you and learning more about you. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And if anyone has any questions or comments, drop them down below. We love to see people subscribe, whether it's on their podcast audio platform or on the YouTube platform. That helps other people find us and share all the fun we have in the needlepoint world. So thanks everyone, and we'll chat soon.
See you. Bye.